Now, there's a lot of nonsense talked about drummers. They just hang around with a band. I don't know. But now and again, a very special one comes along. And the gentleman with me now is without doubt one of the most famous drummers ever to get behind a kit. It is the one, the only, Mr. Billy Cobham. And welcome, sir.
Thank you very, very much. Nice to be here from the Isle of Wight.
We're actually the legendary Ronnie Scott's. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Mark King let me out, so it's okay.
So tell me, I mean, Ronnie Scott's, let's in a situation as it were here. You've played here a few times, I guess.
Yes, I have. Actually, we're approaching our 10th year, I think, playing here every year once since, I was really bad at math. Yeah, no, it's good because prior to this, I played here in 1996, and prior to that, Pete King let us in 1968 with Horace Silver, and that's the only time otherwise.
And of course, Mr. Scott's no longer with us, but the vibe is still the same.
Yeah, it's true. The vibe is still the same. Some things just will never change, but that's okay. That's okay. It's all good.
Okay, but let's go back. When I was 21 years old, I remember an album called Spectrum, going around on a little record player with one of my neighbours. And I remember thinking, what is this? A drummer with a solo record? What is this stuff? Take us back to that time. And how did a drummer make a solo record?
An act of desperation because he'd gotten fired by the band leader after being told that he was in the band for the next year. You see, so without mentioning any names about the band leader, and noticing that encircling him was a bunch of new members of the band without him really knowing officially what that was, having been told months before that you're in, don't worry, everybody else is gone, and realizing that the guy sitting behind him was none other than Narada Michael Walden to take my place, then I realized, wow, I better do something quick, otherwise I'm in serious trouble. So I decided to break out my two index fingers on a piano and come up with something or die because there's nothing else to do. You got to put the food on the table for the family. We do have a family. And so I was successful in coming up with something that I thought would only help me to get the odd wedding, bar mitzvah, whatever. And the next thing you know, 6 months later, there's a record out that I forgot that I had even released because nobody ever told me that it was any good. And but except walking by on a record session and say, man, that's a good record you got. And I said, oh, you mean Esther Phillips? No, it's another record. You made another record, right? Said, I wonder what that is. I'll check it out, yeah. And 6 months later, Atlantic calls and says, you need a band. I said, why, man? That's expensive. I said, well, you got a good record. The record number 31 with a bullet in the Billboard charts. I said, what? No one ever told me. And I turned around and everybody said, yes, we've been telling you for months.
So from there then, you've gone on to play with just about everyone there is, the A to Z, Abba to Zappa, literally, just about. But I mean, back then, did you not feel a solo career beckoned for you? Or what happened after the success of that album?
I made lots of mistakes because I didn't know how to manage myself, and I was out there by myself. And I made them enough to understand that I shouldn't make them anymore. And so I cut down the amount of mistakes that I kept repeating, and eventually understood that this is not rocket science. There's a lot of logic to music. You have to come up with product. You have to have a team, which I've only recently, within the last 15 or 20 years, come together with people who support you and help you to see your way. And because it's not rocket science, it's logic, but things have to work in a certain cycle, a certain way, one thing after the other. And if you don't get it right, it can throw you a bit. And so learning this, amongst other things, to think in a healthy way, because a lot of things that are happening with music happen off stage. And if you are sincere to your environment, to your social environment, and you do the things that will help you to get from one day to the next, chances are you're going to play pretty well. But you have to respect what you do. And that's what that's all about.
You played, as I say, with just about everyone worth mentioning. When you look at a band like John Mayall and stuff, that was always a band where people would pass through. You look at your collaborations. With a John Mayall, for instance, that would have revolved around him. With the collaborations with McLaughlin and all the people, and Hammer and all these people, how did they work? Would they come to you, go to them? Would you sit in a bar and conjure something up? How did it work?
It would be, well, in one situation, prior to the Mahavishnu Orchestra situation, it was John coming to me about the possibility of playing on a recording with Leo Ferre. I think it was a great poet from Paris, and I wouldn't have known him, if who Leo Ferre was from Leo the Lion, man. It's like it just was. It seemed to make sense, and again, working in New York City. When somebody comes to you and says, "Can you do?" you don't say no, because they may not come again, So you go yes and lie and hope that you can. And if you're prepared, generally speaking, it's not without reason that you'll be able to get the job done. With John, it was good. It was really nice to play together. It was nice duets, and we played drums and guitar, and that was very unique for me. But I never thought about it any more than just that. It was a good musical experience, and we move on. But he kept coming back. Now it's about doing this or doing that. And I said, yeah, sure. Again, I'm not looking too far past whatever we do as being only what we do right now. And by the way, tonight I have to play Promises, Promises in the Pit, because that pays the rent. The other thing is a favor, and it's an artistic thing, and it's nice, and then there's life. So or Mel Lewis is calling it, Billy, you available? I need you to sub for me down. It's Monday night, and the band's playing, and I'm not going to get there in time because I've got Kraft Music Hall or something. Yes, sir. Gone. And it's just that kind of thing. But based on all those ties, and people getting to know that Cobham, if you call Cobham, he'll be there if he can be, unless there's an emergency or something's wrong. If he says he can, he will be there, and he will play. And he will hold down the gigs, so everybody's happy. Tomorrow, call him for this. And that was a thank you. You never said, thanks, man. Nobody ever told me thank you verbally and meant it. They did it by saying, are you free for so-and-so and so? That's the thank you.
So the clue, I guess, is egos were locked away in the cupboard. You just got on with the job.
Yes, in essence, because I never even thought about egos. I mean, if they really respect you, it's like, hey man, listen, what are you doing tomorrow? I have this and that and this. That's the thank you. You see, the other stuff, when they say thank you, that's when the egos are out. Yeah. Where
egos, you go, as they say. But talking to supergroups, one can't help but mention the late Jack Bruce and your collaborations with him. Tell us, how did you come upon him?
He came upon me. Actually, what happened was he was playing with Tony at Count Basie's, which is up in Harlem, with Tony Williams, Emergency. No, it was with Lifetime, and it was with McLaughlin, Jack, and Tony. It was trio. And that was rocking. Okay, so done. It's Tony. It's like three bulls in the china shop. Like they're just tearing the place apart. And that was fine by me at the time. Next thing I know, I'm on a tour with McLaughlin, Stu Goldberg, and Jack. And Jack is singing, and we had a ball. We had a really good time. And I thought, well, okay, we did it again. We move on. No big deal. Out of the blue, 1980, 81, Jack calls me up and says, man, would you play in my band? I'm going to do some touring with Clem Clemson, David Sanchez. And I said, yeah. He said, yeah, can even do one or two of your tunes. I said, no, don't, it's okay. I'll just come to play. But we ended up doing like Stratus or Red Baron, whatever it was. But what we did do was Bird Alone and things like this, and that was off the hook, and as far as I'm concerned, it was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. Primarily because I saw Jack Bruce as one of the greatest rock and roll singers I've ever come across, and then a bass player. For me, his voice, his lyricism, just the way that he projected his feelings from the piano, and vocally, it was just, that's special, man. That's way, 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 way super special.
I remember it was quite a shock as a youngster discovering that Eric Clapton was not actually singing all the time, and it was this Scottish guy.
Yes, but I mean, I take either one of them, no problem. But the Scottish guy, I'm much more familiar with. He knocked me out, Jack the Bruce, for every imperfection he had, but he was great,
So, Billy, life goes on, and of course, you're still doing this thing. So, I guess the question you've been asking me, what motivates you at your still young age to do this stuff? You could be at home, you could be on the ranch if you got one.
But if you're at home, you're not doing anything except being at home. And you're in neutral mode. You're just sort of with nothing to do, really. That's not what music's about for me. I can't be at home waiting for something to happen. I have to be at home making something happen for the future. So that means that if I'm home, I'm thinking, what happens next week or the next days? What am I going to do? Action is very, very important. So being at home, you're in vacation mode. You're digesting what you've done. You are also creating something for the future. On the road is where you put that stuff to test, and that's what it's all about. Always doing it.
Got to ask you, of the drummers of the current crop, anyone that takes you and gives you that little goosebump?
Of the current crop right now, and he's still of the current crop as far as I'm concerned, because he's much younger than me, and that's Dennis Chambers. He's just gotten a full, bill of health, so he'll be back up and running real shortly, and that's very, very important because he took a hard knock, working too hard, and so I just found out from him literally today that he's able to work again, because we've got a few projects that I'm including him in. The other person that stays close to me when it comes to playing the drums is a piano player named Gary Husband. And so those two guys are my side. They hold me up. Whenever I have a problem, I tend to run to them and say, listen, you need to fill in. I need to do this or that if it can. Dennis is more available now than he ever was before. And I think his talents will be better used than where he was. I mean, with all this due respect to Santana and all of that, that's not Dennis Chambers, but that's just my opinion. He can do a lot more than that. And so he'll be moving around a bit more. I expect to see him more with Stern and Scott Henderson and all of that. That's more like where he should be.
So Billy Cobham, 42 years on. What about Spectrum, the follow-up album?
Spectrum 40 will be released in April. Yeah, it's funny that you should mention it.
There's me being clever.
with a drummer who's playing piano named Gary Husband. Dean Brown on guitar and Rick Farabracci on bass. It's out Spectrum 40 Live. It just released April 1st.
I'm the fool. I'm the April Fool for even mentioning it. I thought I was being right clever. So unbelievable. So yet another solo album for Billy Cobham.
Yeah, sure.
And I guess the question you asked, what's the gig you want to play? What's the thing you want to do? Is there anything left for you, really? I mean, we're at Ronnie Scott's. Doesn't get better than that, Billy, but is there something in the back of your head you'd really like to do?
Well, right now, after that, we've got the release with me and the Frankfurt Radio Jazz Orchestra with my compositions conducting. That's due out in September. And it's with 22 pieces, and it's a tribute to Gil Evans and, stuff that I wrote that way. Yeah.
Billy Cobham, a complete pleasure, mate.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Thanks indeed. Billy Cobham here on ME1 TV. Steve Blacknell with the legend that is Billy Cobham at Ronnie Scott's. And we'll see you soon.